Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panatipata viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majja pamadatthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Now, before we start our meditation, please check that your microphone is muted, silence, so that you can hear the meditation instructions clearly. Today we'll do a session of breath meditation. So just sit back in a balanced way. Have a quick check that you're sitting properly, comfortably. For those of you who are new, the most important thing is to sit comfortably. Balance, sit upright, relax. Very important to be relaxed. Your head slightly angled, looking down 45 degrees, more or less. Palms together, or on your knees, or on the armchair rest. You can sit on the chair also if you like, but try not to, don't dangle the legs. Place the legs flat on the ground. Make sure the floor is not cold. If the floor is cold, place something, a stool or newspaper. And once you are ready, seated comfortably, just relax your breath. Do nothing to your breath. In other words, we just let go of the breath, let it be. Like when you are sleeping, like a baby. The more you relax, the more you let go, the more you renounce the breath, the more peaceful you will get. Now, to help us focus, for especially beginners, first stage is counting. We count the breaths. There are different ways of counting. We'll learn one of the 3 or 4 ways today. Breathe in, breathe out, count 1. In, out, 2. And then smile. In, out, 3. Smile inwardly. In, out, 4. Breathe in, breathe out, 5. 1 to 5, 1 to 5. You can count up to 10 if you like. 1 to 10, 1 to 10. But don't go beyond 10, it's too big. Don't go below 5, too small. You can choose any number between 5 and 10 and stay with it during that session. If you make any mistakes, you forget the number, it's all right. Start again with 1. After every count, just smile. Anytime you just smile, it helps to focus. Sometimes the breathing will be deep, sometimes shallow, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. Just let it be. We're learning to relax and let go of the breath. This is also one way of having what is called deep rest. So even if you think you can't meditate, you will just let go of the breath. You have a good rest, feeling peaceful. If for any reason you find the counting is difficult or it does not work, it's all right. It happens to about 50% of beginners. You can go straight into the second stage. If you don't like the first stage, you don't have to do it. You can go straight to the second stage. In, out. That means watch the breath coming in. When the breath comes in, note it as in. When the breath has gone out, note it as out. Then smile. In, smile. Out, smile. Just keep the breathing easy and relaxed. Don't force the breath. If you do this properly, your breathing will slow down, become more relaxed. Whenever your mind wanders off, gently bring it back. Keep bringing the mind back to the breath. Every effort you make to do that is an act of mindfulness. As your breath slows down, you will notice there are spaces, there are gaps in between the in and out breaths. You breathe in, Then there is a space. Smile at it. Receive, welcome the space. Don't do anything. Then you breathe out, note it, smile. And then there is a space again. Smile at the space, welcome it, feel the peace. Don't force it, don't rush it. So that's the third stage. In space, out space. So this stage, you cannot force it. It will happen or not happen. Don't worry, just take it like that because everything will happen naturally. Sometimes the space can be quite long. Sometimes just a short while. It's not regular, it doesn't matter. But you can notice there is some space, and the space is peaceful. Just feel that momentary peace, joy. And if you sit long enough, even some bright vision. But since your eyes are closed, this is a mental brightness. In your practice, you can stay with stage 1, counting, or stage 2, in, out, as long as you like, until you feel ready. So as you watch this stage 3, feeling the peaceful space, just feel it. And then noting the in and out, in, out. If you do this properly, after a while you find it is so peaceful, you don't want to say anything at all. That is the fourth stage, or the silent stage. No need to say anything. You feel the peacefulness. You know the breath is coming in. Then there is a space again. Then the breath goes out. You know it, no need to say anything. So your mind is focused on the peaceful breath. Feel the peacefulness of the breath. You notice any thoughts going to come, just smile. Smile at the thoughts. Or smile at the peace. If you do come out of it early, it's all right. Just go back to whichever stage you like and just keep yourself peaceful. The peacefulness will return. So as you practice, improve yourself, you will get better at learning to let go. This is the practice of true renunciation, letting go of your thoughts. It's called meditation. If you find it difficult, you can just do stage 1 or stage 2 or both stages. Just do it, and then you'll be surprised. Stage 3 will just come. Smile at the breath. Now at this stage, please review your practice. Review your practice. That means remember the peaceful moments, focused moments, even joyful moments. Even for a split second, you felt very good, very happy, joyful. Remember that moment. That is the window to peace. This will help you in your future meditations. So whenever you need inner peace, just remember this. When you are sick, when you don't feel well, when you're upset or sad, remember this wonderful moment. You balance yourself, be at peace with yourself. That's how we keep ourselves healthy in mind. Remember this peaceful moment. Review your practice. Also, remember any difficulties that you face. Then next time you are more prepared to prevent the distraction and so on. So that's the second thing you can do during review. And now before we end, we do a bit of what is called just sitting. Just sitting, that means we open our eyes, we just sit quietly for a short while. Come back to this world. We begin our meditation slowly, gently. We end it also slowly, gently. Now we've come to the end of the sitting. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now today is our second last study. We probably would take 2 sessions to do this Kesaputtiya Sutta. If we need a bit of extra time, we probably may have a third session if we find not enough time. So we may have one more day after that. So we will announce if that happens. So this sutta is called Kesaputtiya Sutta. It comes from the word Kesaputta, it's the name of the town or village rather, where people live and Buddha visited it. The people there, they are called Kalamas. So actually Kalama and Kesaputtiya mean the same thing. Kesaputtiya means those from Kesaputta. Okay, so it's the name of the village. Kalama is the clan. You've heard of Alara Kalama, right? So it's a Kalama. So this is a discourse to the Kesaputtiyas. The Buddha is teaching the people of Kesaputtiya, the Kalamas. And the number is A 3.65. It's a very famous sutta, Kalama Sutta. So 365 is the number of days in a year. So remember, very easy to remember, A 3.65. In other words, Anguttara, the book of trees. There are 3 important things there on the Great Head Illusion. Sutta number 65, right? So the next line tells you the Kalama Sutta is the popular name. But interestingly, this name is not found in the text, yeah, in the what you call all those arrangement of Pali texts. They use the word Kesaputtiya. But it's okay. This is just a name we refer to. The Burmese call it BE means Burmese edition. Okay, the E means edition. So you got EE is European edition. That's the Pali Text Society, and then you have CE. CE is a Ceylonese or Sinhalese edition, and then you have SE, Siamese edition. Now each of these letters, they got 2 or 3 or sometimes 4, maybe more other editions. Okay, so these are the key texts we use when we translate to compare notes, as we say. Now the theme of this sutta is often confused. We often people often say, "Oh, this is it's a free inquiry. You can decide what you want to believe or don't believe, right?" So this is a kind of carte blanche, we say. So that's not what it's about. Okay, so people just say what they like here, and people often kind of misunderstand the sutta. They just take one aspect and they think that's it. This sutta has quite a lot of important parts. So we're going to look at them in these 2 or 3 sessions. One key idea here is the true religious worth and spiritual assurance. Okay, what is it that makes religion really worthwhile? How to know things correctly, and how to be sure that we're doing the right thing. All right. Okay, now let's go further down. We'll see the contents. Okay, all right, here you are. This is a new update. So if you don't have this, you find that this is not familiar, just download the new one, 35.4a brackets 1, and you have all this. Now there are 4 chapters, 4 parts to this study. They are all called 35.4. Then you got 35.4a, 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is the English section. Okay, then the 4b is Chinese, translated into English. So this is the first time this translation has been made into English, especially for this SKE session for you all to study, study together. So this SD 35.4a brackets 1, part 1, are the introductory notes. Now these are the longest. There are like 33 pages of notes. Okay, so these notes you read last. You don't start with them. I mean, you can, but it's a bit difficult. They are like reference notes. You look at the sutta and then you jump there, you cross-refer there. Normally, the best thing to do is to start with the sutta itself. That is part 2. You can see that the sutta, the translation. The sutta also has got notes. then the sutta will tell you, okay, look at this, look at that, yeah, cross-reference. And then this sutta is important, so there is a special part 3. This is not found in most other translations. SD 35.4a brackets 3, the commentary. So this has got the traditional commentary and the modern commentary. Now this one is 10 pages. The sutta also 10 pages, okay? So when you look at the sutta, if they see a star, an asterisk, it refers to the commentary. All right, so these are, you've got notes in front, notes at the back, lots of notes for you to study on your own, okay? So this study in your own time, you'll take some time to study this. You take a lifetime, you know, so we never rush to study suttas. And then 35.4b, comparative study, A 3.65 and MA 16. MA is Madhyama Agama, Chong Ahan Jing in Chinese. MA 16 is Chinese version. So we've translated this into English with notes. We're going to study this the second round, or depends, maybe the third time, the third session, if we need to. So that's the introduction, okay? All right, let's go on to the sutta itself. That is part 2. Right, here we are, okay? Now you can see Wendy is very good, it's very fast now, no? So the thing is, people get very good at something and then we're going to end the session already. So hopefully we will continue in the future time. No? Kesaputtiya Sutta, that discuss the Kesaputtiyas or Kalamas. Okay, notice there it says, an asterisk following a word or phrase refers to the commentary, part 3. All right, so you can see the star there. Okay. All right, so this sutta has, if you look, has got different parts. No? So we should not jump to conclusion the Buddha only teaches one thing. For example, the sutta, yeah, we know the important thing the Buddha taught is the 10 points. Don't believe in this, don't believe in that. But the Buddha repeats the 10 points 4 times. Have you ever heard anyone explaining why the Buddha mentioned that 4 times? You know, I didn't know this years back, but recently I look at it, I say, oh, you can see this is why the Buddha mentioned it 4 times. It's all there in the sutta, it's just that we don't notice it, but it's all in the notes now. Okay, so as usual, the sutta starts, thus have I heard. Ananda is reporting to us, giving us the sutta. At one time, the Blessed One was wandering in Kosala. Now, Kosala is one of the big kingdoms ruled by a king called Pasyanadi, with a large community of monks, a few hundred. And they arrive at a market town of the Kalamas, named Kesaputta. Now, market town, Nigama, we have 3 levels of settlements, roughly, in ancient India. You got the village, that's the smallest unit, the Gama, and then you have Nigama. Nigama are market towns. They normally start at crossroads. Crossroads are where travelers stop for a while and they find a direction. So some people who are entrepreneurial, they will open a small stall there, sell something on the roadside, and then slowly all this grow, and it became a town. So that's called a market town. And a market town can become very prosperous and very big. And then you have the cities, okay, and then country. So it goes like that. So this is a market town. So we know these people are quite prosperous, the Kalamas. They're all Brahmins. I forget whether they're all Brahmins, Kashatra. I think probably Kashatra, not Brahmins. And their village is called Kesaputta. Now, there's something interesting here. The Chinese version gives us an extra detail. The Chinese version says that the Buddha and the monks stayed in the Sinsapa forest to the north of the village, right? Now, Sinsapa is a kind of tree. The leaves are quite small. There's a famous sutta called the Sinsapa Sutta, where the Buddha picks up a handful of leaves from the forest floor, and he asks the monks, says, monks, which you think has got more leaves, the leaves in my hand or the leaves in the tree? And then the monks say, oh, the leaves in the tree are much more, of course. So then the Buddha says, well, you know what The knowledge of the world is so much just like the leaves in the tree. But what I've taught you and what you need to know is just like this bit of leaves in my hand. Okay, so that's all you need to know. There's so many things you don't need to know them, right? So this is in the sense of our forest. So this is an extra interesting information found in the Chinese Sutta. All right, so the Buddha is resting there, and then these villagers heard about him because the Buddha is very famous by now. 1.2. Now the Kalamas of Kesaputtiya heard this. It is said, sirs, so this is people talking to each other. They say, hey, you know, the Buddha has come, you know. There is this recluse Gautama, a Sakya son who went forth from the Sakya clan, has arrived in Kesaputtiya. Now, a good report about that Master Gautama has been going around us. So too is he, the Blessed One, for he is Arahat, fully awakened, accomplished in wisdom and conduct. That means wisdom and conduct, that means he's wise, and his practice also reflects that. Welfarer, he's happy wherever he goes, knower of worlds. Right? He can tell us about the nature of existence, peerless guide of tameable persons. Right? He's very good in training people in meditation and becoming kind and compassionate and wise and free. Teacher of gods and humans. So he doesn't only teach this world, he teaches other worlds too. I like this part because, you know, imagine people reading in 1,000 years from now when we have met aliens. You find aliens also studying Buddhism and they find, wow, Buddhism is really advanced, you know. I mean, God religion will be out of date because the aliens will say, oh, I mean, this God story didn't apply in our system, you know, many light years away. But when the Buddha talks about impermanence, it's amazing, you know, you find it's still up to date wherever you are in the universe. So gods and humans, this has got very profound meaning, you know. So when I see the word gods, I sometimes think of aliens. No? And then awaken is actually Buddha, and then blessed Bhagawa. So just to think of the Buddha makes you feel happy. Having realized by his own direct knowledge this world with its gods, its maras, and its brahmas. Okay, some translation only says mara and brahma, okay, singular, right? But we can take this as plural also. This generation with its recluses and brahmins, its rulers and people, he makes it known to others, right? So there are some people who realize the truth, they know something, they just keep it to themselves, they don't teach others. It's secret teaching, but the Buddha freely teaches to everyone, to men as well as to women. If you find among the Brahmins is the men who perform the rituals, and the Brahmini, the woman will stand by while the husband eat first. So there is this sexist discrimination among them. He teaches the Dharma, good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, both in the spirit and in the letter. He proclaims the holy life that is entirely complete and pure, right? So here, good in the beginning, in the middle, in the end refers to the three trainings in moral virtue, meditation, and wisdom, all right? And it is beautiful in the language as well as the meaning also is even more deep. And the Buddha declares it to people. Anyone can join, become monks, renounce the world, and become just like the Buddha. Conclusion, it is good to see such arahats, right? So all these are arahats following the Buddha, all right? So this is the beginning. Let's see what happens now. So these Kalamas heard about the Buddha. Then the Kalamas of Kesaputtiya approached the Blessed One. There's nothing much to do in the villages those days. We're talking about 2,500 years ago. So the Buddha has come is something new, something different from their routine. So the villagers are very excited. The Buddha is very famous. So they decided to approach him in the evening when work is over. So having approached, some saluted the Blessed One and sat down at one side. Some exchanged greetings with him, and when they have concluded their greetings and cordial talk, sat down at one side. Some saluted the Blessed One with lotus palms and then sat down at one side. Some announced their name and clan before the Blessed One, and then sat down at one side. Now, this last part is the one I find very funny. Some kept silent and sat down at one side. So you can more or less guess this last group probably were forced to come because the whole village has come. They were so reluctant to come. Maybe they are not religious or they are playful. So they came and quietly sit down. They don't want to talk to the Buddha. 1.7. When the Kalamas of Kesaputtiya were all seated, they spoke thus to the Blessed One. Okay, this the starting, the thesis, if you like, the idea on which the Buddha will base his teaching. Now they call the Buddha Bante, right? So you can see there's a star there. That means there's a note in the commentary. You can look up. Bante, there are some recluses and Brahmins who come to Kesaputtiya. They expound and explain their own doctrines, but attack, revile, despise, and reject the doctrines of others. And then some other recluses and Brahmins come to Kesaputtiya, and they too expound and explain their own doctrines, but attack, revile, despise, and reject the doctrines of others. Bante, we are uncertain and in doubt. Which of these good recluses and Brahmins speak truth and which speak falsehood? All right. So this is the question they ask, and Buddha's going to answer. Now, this is up to this point, the Chinese section is the same, but then after this, something different. It's very interesting. We're going to find out when we study the next round, what is the difference and why. So here the Buddha replies in a very compassionate way. Section 3. It is fitting that you are uncertain, that you doubt, Kalamas. Doubt has arisen in you over what is doubtful. Right? So very simple, very direct, very compassionate. It's okay, to doubt because, these things are doubtful. And then straight away the Buddha gives what I call the 10 doubtworthy points. Now there are 4. There are going to be 4 of this cycle of repetition of 10 points. So now I've numbered for you. Can you see 10 doubtworthy points? And then there's a star there. You can look up in the commentary. And then this is the first refrain, first round. It is about standards for religious truth. Okay, so you may or may not understand what this means, but the Buddha is mentioning these 10 points to show what is the standard we follow when we talk about religion is true or not. Come, Kalamas, declared the Buddha. Do not go by tradition. Right? The Pali word is ma anusavena. Anusawa. Anusawa means whatever you hear. You hear from the teacher. Teacher repeat, you follow. Okay? So this is tradition, oral tradition. Number 2, do not go by lineage or receive wisdom. So the Brahmins, they have their sons and their son take over. That's called lineage. Parampara. Ma parampara. Yeah. Okay. Parampara. Actually, this Pali word is very interesting. Parampara, it comes from the same word, para. Para plus para. Okay. And then it becomes parampara. All right. Para means other. Okay. One another. So this refers to lineage from one to the other. Okay. Lineage handing down the authority. So don't go by that kind of authority either. And then number 3, don't go by hearsay, right? You don't have to accept these teachers just because you hear someone says this. Ma iti kiraya. Number 4, don't go by scriptural authority, even though it is written in the holy books. Ma pitaka sampadanena. Okay, you notice these are called 4 propositions based on tradition. Okay, so this the first way that knowledge teachings are handed down by tradition. So these are 4 ways. So the Buddha said this is not good enough. And there are these 4 common ways, but you cannot totally rely on what you hear in these 3 ways. Then in these 4 ways rather. Then there are 4 more ways. These 4 are by reasoning. Okay, this is a bit more learned, a bit more technical, meant for the philosophers, the clever teachers, and so on. So again, the Buddha says, do not go by pure reason, by logic. not everything is logical. Many of the things we do are not logical. So just because someone says something is logical, right, doesn't mean it's right. Doesn't mean you should follow it. You find that people who like to argue, they tell you something and say right, yeah, right, because they have to say many times right, because one time is not enough, is it? So the Buddha said, no, you cannot accept something just because it is, even if it is logical. Logic works with computers, science, yes. But when you come to religious experience, you talk about truth in religion, it's another matter. Number 6, do not go by inference or deduction. So this special aspect of logic we need not trouble too much. This is one of the ways that people in those days think. Number 7, do not go by reason thought. This is our own reasoning. Yeah? So we think about it, we think and think, we say, oh, maybe he's right, like that. That's what's meant here. So we could be wrong. Number 8, do not go by acceptance of being convinced of a view after pondering on it. Right? So this one is we think about it and we give up and say, okay, I accept it. All right. So these are the 4 ways according to reasoning. The Buddha said you should not simply accept it that way. All right. Then you have the last 2. These last 2 is personal authority. Number 9, do not go by another's seeming ability. Your seeming ability has quite a broad meaning. It depends on how you define the person to be able. You may think, say, oh, this teacher very clever. It also includes very good in talking, looks very calm, looks holy, or looks handsome or pretty, So all these are ability. So just very often when we listen to teachers talking, it's because we like them, that's why we listen to them, right? It's not because the Dharma is interesting or not. Normally, if the Dharma too difficult, we say, oh, this teacher not good. It's because we don't understand. Okay. Then number 10, this one is a real tough one. Do not go by the thought, this recluse or this holy man is our teacher. Now look at the Pali. The Pali says, Ma samano no garu. Samano means recluse. No means our, no here means our. Garu. Okay, Garu has 2 meanings. One meaning is holy person, respected person. This person is respected. Another meaning is in Thai become kru, Garu, okay? Means guru, Malay becomes guru. This is our teacher, right? That means even when I tell it to you, you don't simply blindly accept it. You have to investigate. Is it based in the sutta? Is it correct? Then what I say is authentic. All right, so that's the meaning here. So you can imagine these 10 are not easy things to follow. And now I can let go a secret. These 10 points are not found in the Chinese sutta. And yet the sutta is also called Kalama Sutta. And the other teachings are there, but these 10 are not there. So we find out why this happened, okay? All right, so the Buddha gave these 10 points. And then there is a proviso. Now this is very important, okay? We often forget this part, 3.2. When you know for yourselves, Kalamas, these things are unwholesome. These things are blamable. These things are censured by the wise. In other words, the wise amongst us, the very good people said, no, this one is not right. We cannot accept this. These things fully undertaken bring about harm and suffering. Then, Kalamas, you should abandon them. Okay, notice the Buddha starts with what is called the negative aspects first. Apophatic. Apophatic, that means don't do it. Normally, the teaching starts with that, the moral aspect. So here the Buddha says, okay, these are the 10 things. You cannot simply, it's okay to doubt, okay, from these 10 points. Now notice the Buddha did not say don't accept. He simply says ma. You know what's interesting here is there's no verb in all these Pali words given for the 10 points. The word is just, of course in English there is a verb there which says don't. But in Pali, ma is not a verb. It's a kind of indeclinable. In other words, you don't change the word. It's there, ma. Like in Malay, jangan, okay? Don't. But in English, don't is do not. There's a verb there. But not in Pali. So that's all. Ma this, ma that. So don't this, don't that, you know. All right. Or another way is you want to be more literal, not this, not that. So what the Buddha is saying is you cannot take this as the standard, these 10 points. However, the first advice the Buddha gave is you look at this situation, look at this thing that this teacher is telling you. Is it wholesome or not? Is it blamable or not? When you practice all this, will it bring you suffering or not? If it does, then you should not practice it. Right, so there you are. This is the practical aspect. There is something for us to follow here. We don't just blindly say, no, we don't have to accept anything. No, that is the wrong idea. That is what lazy people tell us. They don't want to believe in anything, not even the Dharma. So here, let's take a couple of minutes breather. Notice this is what the Buddha is telling us about in the Kalama Sutta, the 10 points. He's not saying you reject everything. He's saying, think about it. Is it harmful? Is it bad or not? If it's bad, do not take it. Do not accept it. All right. And this is just the beginning, by the way. This is still part of the first cycle where the Buddha is talking about the teachings of other teachers. Now he goes on into detail. Notice the heading there, the 3 unwholesome roots. 1, see? So this is where all these headings are very helpful. That's why we have this translation, the Sutta Discovery. We put in all these subheadings and headings, so it's easy for you to guide your study as you go along. So now the Buddha continues, okay, what must you do? All right. Now there's one thing I want you to notice. You notice the header, the 3 unwholesome roots, brackets 1, and then there is a small 9-point print. This 9-point, you have that double S sign, 10. That is a section sign, by the way. Section 10 in 9 points, very small. This is a cross-reference. It means you can see another similar heading in section 10. So you go down, later on, you find there is this connection, there is this repeat, so you can compare notes. So this is something extra for the diligent scholar and student. Yeah. Okay, now the Buddha is going to talk about the 3 unwholesome roots. Notice, this is important, you know. This is basic Buddhism. Section 4. What do you think, Kalamas? Again, notice the Buddha is very engaging. He doesn't presume, he doesn't take a high stand and say, oh, you're wrong, let me teach you. So what do you think? What do you think, Kalamas? When greed arises in the person, is it for his good or for his harm? Right? Simple question, right? But then not many people ask this kind of question. So, but it's very clear. The Buddha wants to be very clear first that the basic facts are understood. So for his harm, Bhante, replied the Kalamas, right? When greed arises in us, it harms us. Buddha continues. This person, Kalamas, who is greedy, overcome by greed, his mind, controlled by greed, destroys life, takes the not given, violates the women of others, tells lies, and he will also make others do likewise. Notice, in other words, when we are greedy, we will break the precept, and we also tell people, it's okay, you can break the precept, right? So we also encourage others to do it, which bring him harm and suffering for a long time. And Kalamas agrees. So yes, Bhante, true. Okay. Now, this is a cycle, 3 cycles. So this is the first cycle on greed, and then the second cycle is on hatred. Section 5. What do you think, Kalamas? When hatred arises in a person, is it for his good or for his harm? Kalamas, for his harm, Bhante. This person, Kalamas, says the Buddha, who is hateful, overcome by hatred, his mind controlled by hatred, destroys life, takes the not given, violates the women of others, their lives, and he will also make others do likewise, which will bring him harm and suffering for a long time. And then the Kalamas agrees, yes, Bhante, right? And then come to the third cycle. The cycle is on delusion. So here, very clear, you have greed, hate, delusion. Section 6, so again, here the Buddha asked the basic question, what do you think, Kalamas? When delusion arises in the person, is it for his good or for his harm? Obviously, answer the Kalamas, it's for his harm, right? So the Buddha goes on to say, well, when someone is deluded, he's going to break all the precepts, okay? Well, I know somebody is going to ask, oh, how come the Buddha mentioned only don't disturb women of others and not the third precept as we know it? Well, here the Buddha is talking to this group of people, mostly men, see? All right? So he wants to tell the men, do not disturb the women of others. The women are kind of, second class and they are obedient and so on. So the Buddha doesn't have to tell them so much. He's telling the men, behave yourself. All right. So this is something we must use our imagination and look at the social condition at that time. So the Buddha specifically mentioned this to warn the men, behave yourself. All right. So we must not jump into conclusion. So very often scholars, I think they're very clever. They say, wow, look at this. The Buddha only, talks about women of others. It's okay for us to do other things which Buddha did not mention. That's not true. Now, because of this kind of important development, I have set a rule for myself. I call it the rule of context or principle of context. And this is very important for me. I find it helps me a lot. The rule of context. Whenever you find something strange, which you see as out of the ordinary, ask yourself, what is the context? What is the Buddha talking about? What is the background here? Look for the context. Try to see the line, the sentence as it is. Don't change what the Buddha say, okay? Don't be clever and say, oh, this must be an error, transmission error, probably those sutta reciters made a mistake. How do we know? Okay, we got to check. Why don't we check carefully? What exactly is the sutta trying to say first before we jump to that kind of conclusion? Then if we jump to that kind of conclusion, we are not following the sutta at all, right? So we have to examine the context very carefully. And I have presented to you according to context. I hope I am doing it right, of course. All right, so the Buddha said, well, if you are deluded, you break the precepts. And then you're going to suffer for a long time. And the Kalamas agree, all right? Now, it's still the first cycle, moral refrain 1, emphatic rejection. So the Buddha is now reminding the Kalamas. He's teaching them, he says, what they must reject. Again, this is called the Socratic method. We call it Socratic method, but actually it's also the Buddha method, okay? The Buddha method, section 7. What do you think, Kalamas? That means he asks questions. This is a very simple, very clear truth. He asks the Kalamas, what do you think, Kalamas? You are thinking people, so think, what do you think here? Are these things wholesome or unwholesome? Right, so like a revision here, he wants to be clear. And then on the right side, the Kalamas reply, unwholesome, Bhante. Blamable or not blamable? Blamable, Bhante. In other words, breaking the precepts and so on. Censured or praised by the wise? Censured by the wise, Bhante. Notice that the Buddha is teaching Dhamma here. He's not saying only he is right. He's saying these are such common sense teaching that even the good people in the world who have no religion, who are not Buddhists, will agree. All right, these are called the wise. Then finally, Buddha says, these things fully undertaken, do they bring about harm and suffering? What do you think of this? These things, Bhante, fully undertaken, bring about harm and suffering. So indeed it is to us in this matter. Right? So notice the Kalamas totally agree with the Buddha in this. So you can say the first cycle is finished here. Okay. So here the Buddha is talking about how to treat other religions. Okay. Now, I think we will take a short break before we go to the next cycle because we have quite a list in each cycle. Okay, so it's just nice, 5 minutes to 9. Is it okay? Or you want me to continue?
Yeah, I think okay, we can take a short break now.
All right, sure. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Piya.
Okay, let's continue. Let's see. Okay, very good. Okay, now look at the 10 Dharwati points, brackets 2, standards for moral ethics. This section is a bit, the position is a bit tricky. No? Actually, it's number 2 refers to the moral refrain. You notice the previous one, the Buddha say, unwholesome, blamable, censured, right? So then all these things should not be done. Okay, then the Buddha repeats the 10 points. He says, therefore, this is why I teach these 10 points. Don't go by tradition. Don't go by lineage. Don't go by hearsay. Don't go by scriptural authority. Don't go by pure reason. Don't go by inference. Don't go by reason, thought. Don't go by acceptance of being convinced of a view after pondering on it. Don't go by another's seeming ability. Don't go by the thought, this recluse is our teacher. And then look at the 8.2. When you know for yourself, Kalamas, these things are unwholesome, these things are blamable, these things are censured by the wise, these things fully undertaken bring about harm and suffering, then you should abandon them. So this is the real standard. If it is not good, bring harm, you should not follow them. Okay. So notice this is connected with number 7, kind of pair up, correlative. So the Buddha mentions this 10 points again. So there you are. Okay, here the Buddha is saying that this 10 points is to remind us, not simply to fall into belief. The real standard, the gold standard is this, the 3 unwholesome roots to be rejected, 3 wholesome roots to be accepted. That is why this sutta is not classed under the 10s, it is classed under the 3s. Remember, A 3.65, right? So that again is a hint. The key teaching here is not the 10 points. The key teaching is the 3 points, greed, hate, delusion, right? So first part, the Buddha is helping the Kalamas understand how to listen to all these religious teachers. You don't need to accept, and just listen carefully and then examine. If I practice all this teaching, is it good for me or not? If it is harmful, then section 2, don't follow it. Okay, this is where I've stopped now. And then we go on to next. The Buddha repeats the 10 points one more time, but look at the heading, 10 Dharwati points 3, and this time it is the standard for self-realization. Can you imagine? It's quite difficult to read the original sutta, right, without all the headings. So here, these headings have been put for you to help to guide you along. So here again, the Buddha says the same thing. Come, Kalamas, do not go by oral tradition. Oral means what is heard, A-U-R-A-L, not O-R-A-L. This is the thing about English. A-U-R-A-L is pronounced oral, same as O-R-A-L, but the meaning are very different. A-U-R-A-L means what is heard. O-R-A-L means what is spoken. Okay, here meaning received tradition. Don't believe something simply because you heard it. It is something handed down generation after generation. Do not believe do not go by lineage, right? Some Buddhist groups tell you, oh, my teacher's teacher, and go back by lineage. Then hearsay, this one is really, this is quite bad. You find now with all this COVID thing, lots of hearsay, isn't it? So religion, Buddhism also same thing, right? Someone comes to you and say, oh, this teacher is good, this teacher is bad, hearsay, examine for yourself. Do not go by scriptural authority. Right? Sometimes you hear people say, oh, this sutta said this sutta said that. Which sutta they don't know, or sometimes they misquote the sutta. It can happen. So we've got to check for ourselves. It's not that the suttas are wrong. It's just that we misquoted it or we could have misunderstood it. So each of us must examine for ourselves. Do not go by pure reason. Not everything is logical. We fall in love, not logical. Right? We decide to practice Buddhism, also not logical, because we feel happy. Feeling happy is not logical. Do not go by inference, right? Again, jumping to conclusion. Do not go by reason thought, like we reason for ourselves and then we conclude, therefore, Do not go by acceptance of being convinced of a view after pondering on it. Okay? So we think about it, say, oh, this must be right. Do not go by another seeming ability because you like this person, because of charisma. Do not go by the thought, this recluse or holy man is our teacher or is a respected world famous teacher. Okay? The wonderful thing is we may read all this now, but when it comes to real situation, we often forget. So it's good to know the sutta, read the sutta occasionally. So what to do now? This time Buddha is very positive. This time the heading is right view as virtual action. Now look at the previous one. Just the previous one is kind of the three unwholesome, what do you call it, roots, right? Remember the section 10 crossover? So here you are, this section 10 here again. 9.2 and then 10. We're coming to that. So here, right view as virtual action, the Buddha says in 9.2, when you know for yourselves, Kalamas, these things are wholesome. All right, now it's positive. These things are not blamable. These things are praised by the wise. These things fully undertaken bring good and happiness. Then, Kalamas, you should live cultivating them, right? So you can accept them. There you are. Now you have the three awesome roots again in detail. Okay, now the Buddha builds his idea on the previous idea. It's amazing how the sutta flows very nicely. We look at it. It's a literary jewel, in terms of style of presentation. And now you have this time the three wholesome roots. Previously, three unwholesome roots. Okay. Now you look at 3 point. You can see the line there, the three wholesome roots, brackets 2, and then 9 point, section 3.2, right? So you go to there, you find those are the three unwholesome roots. And this time you have three wholesome roots: non-greed, non-hate, non-delusion. Section 10. What do you think, Kalamas? This person in whom non-greed or charity arises, does it arise for his good or for his harm? For his good, Bhante. This person, Kalamas, who is not greedy, not overcome by greed, his thought not controlled by it, does not destroy life, does not take the not given, does not violate the women of others, does not tell lies, and he will not make others do likewise. Notice there are two parts of the practice of precepts. One is we ourselves keep it. Next thing is we encourage others to keep the precepts also. Right, the two parts. Wisdom, your own practice; compassion, getting others to do it too. Which will bring good and happiness for a long time. And the Kalamas agrees, yes, Bhante. And then the Buddha repeats the same thing for non-hatred, right? The Buddha asks the same Socratic question. Now, what do you think? If someone has non-hatred, is it good or bad? Of course, it's good, because this person will not break the precepts, and he will not encourage others to break the precepts too. All right. So summarize that point. Now we go to 12. Non-delusion. What do you think, Kalamas? This person in whom non-delusion or wisdom arises, does it arise for his good or for his harm? Of course, for his good, Bhante. This person, Kalamas, is not deluded, not overcome by delusion, his mind not controlled by it, does not break any of the 5 precepts, okay? Which will bring good and happiness for a long time. And the Kalamas agree, okay? This is like a musical piece now. So the Buddha goes to the rhythm. It asks the Kalamas again to confirm, to affirm, okay? Emphatic affirmation. Moral refrain 2. This is the second round. This time is the positive, the wholesome roots. 13. What do you think, Kalamas? Are these things wholesome or unwholesome? Kalamas, wholesome, Bhante. Blamable or not blamable? Not blamable. Keeping the precepts, right? Not blamable. Censured or praised by the wise? Praised by the wise. These things fully undertaken, do they bring good and happiness? Of course. These things bring good and happiness. And the Buddha, this time, maybe pause for a short while, a few minutes, and then he repeats the 10 points again. But why this time? This time he's going to go into a new area. Here I've given you the subheading, the 10 Dharwati points 4, the common good. Now let's recap one more time. First time the Buddha mentioned the 10 points is to help the Kalamas understand the nature of religious talk. Don't accept everything that you hear at once. Examine in terms of practice, is it good or not? And then you have number 2, second round is standard for moral ethics. When you want to act yourself, right? Don't blindly listen to people. Examine, ask yourself, when I do this, how will it affect me, affect others? That's number 2. Yeah? The 10 points as the guide for moral ethics, or moral virtue. And then the third round, very close. Third round is self-realization. This one is for our own practice, for our own cultivation. Our own cultivation. And this will be repeated at the end, by the way. Then the Buddha goes on to the 4th reason why he mentioned the 10 Dharwati points. Back to page 91, section 14. And what is the heading there? Look at the heading, 10 Dharwati points, brackets for the common good. This time, the Buddha universalizes the whole world. This is applicable anywhere there is society, civilized people, good people, the common good. Anyone who is good, civilized, will agree with this. Sometimes this is called a civil religion. So you don't really need religion. If you have people who are good, they will gather together and they will more or less agree on the same thing. So again, here the Buddha says, thus, 14, thus I've spoken, Kalamas. It is for this reason that I've spoken thus. Come, Kalamas, do not go by oral tradition. Do not go by lineage. Do not go by hearsay. Do not go by scriptural authority. Do not go by pure reason. Do not go by inference. Do not go by reason thought. Do not go by acceptance of being convinced of a view after pondering on it. Do not go by another's seeming ability. Do not go by the thought, this recluse or holy man is our teacher. Right? What must you do? Review. 14.2. When you know for yourselves, Kalamas, these things are wholesome. These things are not blamable. These things are praised by the wise. These things fully undertaken bring good and happiness. Then, Kalamas, you should live cultivating them. Thus, I have spoken. For this reason, I have spoken thus. Notice this part seems to be repeated because it's very important. The Buddha stressed on the 3 wholesome roots. Okay. Now, the teaching on the 10 points are finished. the Buddha is to go on to a new teaching. I think what I'll do is I'll go on to this section also. There's a bit of time. Then they will save us a bit of time. Next round, I only finish the last part and the Chinese version. The Chinese version will be taught in English, okay? Okay, so what the Buddha is doing now, he's telling us, okay, there are these 10 points, okay, you remember them. And then there are these 3 unwholesome roots. If they're unwholesome, don't follow, don't do. If they're wholesome, follow. Then what do you do after that? So here, in other words, notice in section 14.2, the Buddha is talking about non-greed, non-hate, non-delusion. We should be cultivating them. And then he goes to section 15. This is already about meditation already. The cultivation of loving kindness, compassion, gladness, and equanimity, the 4 divine abodes. So this is section 15. Now, Kalamas, that noble disciple, thus free from covetousness, from ill will, unconfused, clearly comprehending, ever mindful, dwells, and so on. Actually, this first part I've just read is a coded sentence referring to deep meditation. Of course, the Kalamas listen, they don't understand at first. But here, when we look at it, we know, say, wow, look at it. The Buddha say, free from covetousness, free from ill will. They go together. These 2 sentences go together. It refers to the 5 hindrances. In other words, here, this person, if he does this properly, he will cultivate jhana. You go into deep meditation. So you want to go into deep meditation, you must practice the precepts properly. And in the previous section, the Buddha was talking actually about properly keeping the precepts. Keep the precepts properly, then you go into meditation. Now the Buddha says, number 1, loving kindness. So the noble disciple dwells, pervading with a heart of loving kindness. Dwells, suffusing 1 quarter, so to the 2nd, so to the 3rd, so to the 4th. Thus above, below, across, everywhere, and to everyone, as well as to himself. He dwells, suffusing all the world with loving kindness, that is vast, grown, great, or exalted, immeasurable, without hate, without ill will. So here, this is the standard, complete description or instruction for practicing loving kindness. Okay, this is the directional method, by the way, starting with the front, usually the east, and then go clockwise or sunwise, rather, all around. So here, notice the Buddha is teaching the Kalamas how to do loving kindness, right? Not breath meditation, but loving kindness. And then the second practice is compassion. Same thing, directional also. He dwells with a heart of compassion. He dwells suffusing 1 quarter, that is the front, spreading compassion frontwards. So to the 2nd, so to the 3rd, so to the 4th. Thus above, below, across, everywhere, and to everyone, as well as to himself. Don't forget yourself. He dwells suffusing all the world with compassion. This is vast, grown great, immeasurable, without hate, without ill will. This means they attain into deep level, samadhi, into jhana, and so on, all around. So you start with loving kindness first. You cannot go straight into compassion. You start with loving kindness, and then you go on to compassion, like that. And then 3 is gladness, joy, mudita. He dwells with a heart of gladness. He dwells suffusing 1 quarter, so to the 2nd, so to the 3rd, so to the 4th. Thus above, below, across, everywhere, and to everyone as well as to himself. He dwells suffusing all the world with gladness, joy. That is vast, grown great, exalted, immeasurable, without hate, without ill will. So we start off with loving kindness, accepting everyone as they are. Okay. And then the second round, we see some people suffering, and we put that loving kindness into action. We want them to be well, to be happy, and we, after meditation, we even act to help them. And when they are okay, they prosper, we feel happy for them. We say, oh, that's wonderful. They're enjoying their good karma. And then number 4, equanimity, section 4. He dwells with the heart of equanimity, balanced-mindedness, peace. He dwells of using 1/4, so to the second, so to the third, so to the fourth. First is the front, second is the right hand, and then the back, and then the left hand quarter. So thus above, below, across, everywhere, to everyone as well as to himself. He dwells suffusing all the world with equanimity that is vast, throne great, immeasurable, without hate, without ill will. So that is the practice of the 4 divine abodes. So today I'm going to stop here, and then in the next lesson we'll finish off with the 4 self-assurances, and then we'll go on to study the English translation of the Chinese version. Okay, it's a very interesting text. There'll be a lot of surprises there. Okay.
Thank you, Teacher Piya, for explaining the sutta. We will now stop here and start the question and answer session. Please feel free to ask a question by writing on the chat box, or you can raise your hand to ask your question. Please make sure you leave your camera on. I will now pass the session to Sister Aixi.
Thank you, Sister Wendy. Good evening, brothers and sisters. Reminder to switch on your video during this Q&A session. Brother Piya, at the moment, there is no question in the chat box.
All right.
Anytime, we can come. Any brother and sister have questions, you can raise your hand and to unmute and ask your question straight away. Sister Pamuja.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening.
Yes.
Piya, Ratna. Yes. Can I ask this question? When we go into meditation, anapanasati, we can see nimitta, or is
the answer to that question is I don't know, because it depends individual to individual. Okay, so I won't know. But theoretically, nimitta means whatever object you see in front of you. It need not mean concentration, you know. For example, if a young man is riding a motorbike and then he sees this pretty girl and then fixes his eye on the girl, that is the nimitta. He's going to meet with an accident. Okay, so that is nimitta. When you go shopping, right? You hear the sound, nice music, you say, oh, nice music, you listen to the music, that's nimitta, sound nimitta. So nimitta can be a worldly thing, wrong nimitta, bad nimitta. So the lesson is make sure your nimitta is the good one, the right one. All right. The modern meaning nimitta, oh, something beautiful, bright lights and things are very recent. That is the modern meaning. Okay, I think probably that's what you mean. So when nimittas, if such nimittas do arise, and then you say, oh wow, this is nice, wonderful, those are not nimittas. You have distracted yourself. Okay, it's just like someone asking, am I focused or not? Am I focused? The answer is definitely no. You're not focused. If you must ask, you're not focused. So meditation is quite tricky, you know. You only examine all this after the fact. That means during the review period. You look back. Okay, what did I see? This very peaceful feeling. Remember in what we learned today, the third step, in our breath meditation, we see this peace, right? So that's nimitta. So that's nimitta, right? So it's not an easy question to answer. So I've explained this in some detail. So try to look at the answer and then get the understanding yourself. Okay. So remember to recall the practice today, especially the third stage. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Brother Piya. The first question in the chat box from Brother Ryan Gore. Sadhu Bante, how do we reconcile reading our sutta and Buddha's teaching of not to follow scripture?
Interesting question. Okay. Remember here, the word is Pitaka Sampadadena. Do not go by scriptural authority. In other words, we don't simply quote Buddha said this, Buddha said that, without the context, without, in other words, the properly understanding what is he talking about. For example, someone can quote a sutta and say, you know, the Buddha said, you must treat your wives properly. The Buddha spoke in the plural. So then you use that passage, you say, oh, you know, Buddha said you can have more than one wife, you know. That's not what the passage is about, you see. So that's the meaning here. You cannot accept simply what people say offhand like that, okay? There is the context. Remember the rule of context? The Buddha is talking about this special situation, that these people, to the king who has many wives, you know, context. So in other words, examine the context. And then remember the second part, that every time there's a second part. In the case of the first round, the Buddha says, ask yourself first, is this rooted in greed, rooted in hate, rooted in delusion? Is this harmful to me? Right? First question. If yes, don't do it. No, okay. No, perhaps you can do that. Then one more set of question. There's no greed, no hate, no delusion here. So this is good for me. I can do it. So you got to ask the question about the 3 roots. If they are wholesome roots, they help you, they bring you happiness, they help you to meditate, then you can follow it. So you have to be very careful. And then you try again. That also is not a final solution. You try and then you find, oops, I made the wrong decision here. I misjudged this. You find it doesn't help, then you examine what's going on. So it's a kind of ongoing safety device here. The Buddha is teaching us this so that we don't get caught up by the gurus. We don't get caught up by the teachers who simply want us to obey without properly practicing the suttas, in other words. So the suttas are there. To me, the suttas are still the authority. But the question is, you got to understand what is meant by authority. It means, number one, you understand what the context is. Number two, you practice it yourself. And then you examine what's going on, and then you look at the sutta again and say, oh, okay, now I know what it means, right? Then you have a better understanding of it. That's the meaning. So you go into a deeper and deeper understanding of it. That's the meaning here. Don't accept anything on the word level. What does it mean? What is its purpose? Okay, so that is the context of the teaching here. I hope that is clear enough now. Okay.
Thank you, Brother Piya.
Okay.
The next question from Sister Ratna. Piya, why the 5th precept is not mentioned in the sutta?
Okay. The 5th precept is not always mentioned. For one reason, maybe drinking is not a problem among that community, right? But remember, there are suttas which mention the 5 precepts very clearly. I have a whole section on that in the Sutta Discovery, where the 5th precept is clearly mentioned, right? So in this case, my understanding is probably it's not a problem with this community of people, okay? They're quite restrained in terms of drinking. And or maybe it is not a serious problem at that time. Then later on, the Buddha find that as Buddhism became more popular and he comes to meet more people, he finds, wow, a lot of people are drinking. So then he highlights the 5th precept. Definitely in the later suttas, the 5 precepts are more highlighted and very clearly presented. So remember, you have the shorter version, you have the longer version, right? Don't misquote. Don't take one section to the exclusion of other sections and then say, oh, look, the Buddha only taught 4 precepts. You know, you don't have to worry about the 5th precept. That is wrongly following the Kalama Sutta already. Okay. So examine the context as a whole, all right? The spirit of the teaching. For example, even though the precept's not mentioned, if you do drink, you break the precept. You drink, you get drunk, you will break the precept, right? So that is application of the 3 roots already. So there you are. That is the safety catch, right? So the Buddha often provide this kind of guideline, right? So this is where your free mind, your intelligence, your knowledge and wisdom, understanding of suttas come in. You examine very carefully what's going on. Remember, we could be wrong. That is why all these are provisional, but we keep on diligently examining, carefully looking. We usually will not be wrong. Okay, next question, please.
Thank you, Brother Piya. The next question from Brother Gohan Kui. Brother Piya, at the Divine Abodes section, the Buddha taught the Kalamas the practice by starting to suffuse at the universal level and then funnel down to oneself, which is opposite the normal practice of the 4 divine abodes, i.e. starting from oneself and suffuse outwards. Why is that so, and is there any significance to this? Thank you very much.
Oh, it's just a reading of the words, okay? If you look at the passage, it's in section 15. Look at the loving kindness. The Buddha says, you first direct it to front quarter, and then right hand quarter, back, and so on, step by step. So in other words, this is directional. And then when you finish with this, you come back to yourself. Don't forget yourself. So this is where the self is placed last. This is one method. Okay. This is good for people who don't like to start with themselves. You know, there are some people who say, no, I don't like to think of me first. There are cases. So this is one way. No? On the other hand, in our normal practice, we start with ourselves and then we extend it. So that's another method, person-based. Okay. But then we also include the directional, and then we close, bring it back to ourselves. We should not forget ourselves at the end also, because it's a very nice way to close. You come back to yourself, and then you picture this bright heart. So you remember there's loving kindness there with you all the time. So it's like it goes in a circle. All right. You start with yourself, it goes out into the world, and you come back to yourself, and you remember there's always this loving kindness, compassion, and so on inside you, right? So it's not going backwards. It's just that this is one method taught to the public in theory. So this is not actual sitting at that time. The Buddha is teaching them in theory, and then in due course, when they want to learn, the Buddha will actually teach them in practice. Okay? So we got to, again, as I said, see the context here. Okay.
Thank you, Brother Piya.
Yeah.
The next question from Brother LCO.
Okay.
This Kalama Sutta, I did not know that there are so much other than the 10 rules. It is good learning on the 4 reasonings.
Wonderful.
Can I ask out of this sutta about Buddha command on 2 incidents of 2 villages come across 2 persons asking God or no God, and Buddha asks back, so do you believe in God? And the person say no. Then Buddha said there is no God. Another person asked Buddha that, is there God? And Buddha asked back, so do you believe in God? And the person replied, he believed there is God. And Buddha replied that then there is God. After a while, Ananda asked Buddha, puzzled by the two contradicting answers, asked Buddha, so is there God or no God? And Buddha knocked his head and said that you have followed me so long and yet you ask this question. Is this story part of one of the sutta or I heard wrong view?
Sounds like a Zen story, huh? The Buddha doesn't go to double talk this way, as far as I understand. There are some details missing here. It's not characteristic of the sutta. The Buddha would have said some more and then explain what's going on. The Buddha wouldn't be dismissive. This is what happens when you read the Chinese translation later on, you know. The Buddha is very dismissive. The Buddha says, oh, you know nothing, you don't have this wisdom, like that. The Buddha doesn't talk like that unless that person is really very nasty and having a very wrong view and refuses to budge, although given advice. So that's why it's important to examine the suttas that you hear or come across. Look for the reference, who said it, there are many Zen teachers who are businessmen, who are professors nowadays, and then they write their own stories and they start attacking the Xiaochen, the early Buddhism as a little Buddhist and so on. And we don't normally bother about such, attacks and making fun of the Buddha and so on. So we have to be very careful. Those are not Buddhist teachings. They are just coffee table talk and jokes, So it's best to set them aside. So be very sure of your source. Then we can, examine and find some interesting details to discuss. Okay. All right. Next question, please.
Thank you, Brother Piya. At the moment, there's no question in the chat box.
Okay.
Okay, any brother and sister who would like to ask question, you can raise your hand now.
Still about 20 minutes now.
I have a question.
Yes, Sita.
Yeah, probably they have not understood the qualities of the Buddha. If you have understood the qualities of the Buddha, you will never use these words or anything.
Of course, yeah. It's knowing the Buddha and not knowing the Buddha. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we have to be very careful. There are so many, it's like commercialized here and there. To reach this goal. Yeah, it takes years or myself so confused from all this, especially here in the West. Until I start meditating and I go to the real roots, then I can compare and start analyzing what is false, what is wrong, what is right, and how they talk about bad things or criticizing. It takes a long way.
Yes. In fact, as we know Buddhism better, then you begin to piece us together, you find they actually get simpler also. Right?
Yeah, if you understand the qualities, like you say, vini tabu, that means you come and see ehipatiko, you have to realize for yourself.
Yeah, vedi tabbo.
Yeah, that's why when I remember. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. Any questions?
Yes, Brother S.T. Lee, you can ask your question. Can you unmute yourself?
Hello.
Yes, hello. Yeah.
Brother Piya,
yes.
You're keeping well?
Yes, I'm very well, yeah. Only I got terminal disease that's called life.
I just want to seek some clarification
of
the sutta that you've been talking about tonight. And it is addressed to the Kalamas.
Yeah.
So is this the Kalama Sutta that we are familiar with, or is it the Kesaputtiya Sutta?
It's the same. It's the same.
Are they synonymous?
Yes, the same, synonymous, yeah.
Okay. And basically, the Kalama Suttas, as I understand it, is for us to not accept whatever taught to us at face value, that it is up to individual person to investigate whatever
Let me stop you there for a while, because that's what the Sinhalese monks have been spreading for decades now, presenting the Kalama Sutta as a kind of carte blanche, a kind of a free for all, no need to believe in anything, you know, for this populist view. There's no such sutta in the Buddha's name, okay? But this Kalama Sutta is also called Kesaputtiya Sutta. This is actually what it's meant to be. So that's why we are correcting this wrong view of misquoting the Buddha, okay? So I hope you will correct that modernist misinterpretation of the Kalama Sutta. To again, in a sense, to correct myself, there's only one Kalama Sutta. It is another name for the Kesaputtiya Sutta. Okay, so yes.
Does the sutta actually include the sublime states?
Yes.
That you mentioned at the end.
This is the complete sutta. That is why we have the sutta discovery, we have the sutta number, so you can look it up yourself. Okay, so we have always called the scholarly and academic apparatus. You look up, it's all there in Pali, in translation. Whereas those people who quote the Kalama Sutta, they don't have any of these things. But because they quote it too often, as someone says, it could be Einstein or somebody, if you repeat a lie often enough, people will think it's the truth. It's a very damaging truth. So I think it's very important to correct that wrong view. No? It's not a carte blanche, okay? So this is the, do read this again. There are 76 pages. If you don't want to read all 76, okay, just read the suttas, only 10 pages. It's all there. The actual
This
sutta.
is the Anguttara Nikaya that you give us 3.65, is it?
Correct, yeah. If
Thank you
don't have the text, we'll send it to you. It's available on Telegram. Just download it, okay? I know for older seniors, it can be quite harassing, quite difficult sometimes. But get help from some younger people. When I first started with Zoom, I was terrified also. I do not know what to do. So technology is like that. But young people, it's a breeze. They just do it like that. It's like nothing, you know. This is about like young people with toys, eh? So that's the way things are. But please ask. We're always there. We understand the situation. If you cannot get the sutta, ask us. We will send it to you. Telegram is so easy to send. We can also, whatever you want, email to you, send through Facebook also can.
Thank you.
But I don't use WhatsApp anymore.
Just an interruption. I already sent to your email, Dr. Lee, the suttas.
Okay, just check your.
Okay, I will.
Okay, yeah, very good, very good. You've raised this up. Huh? All right, we have about 15, slightly under 15 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you, Brother Piya. The next question from Sister Solgate Chok. Brother Piya, kindly please explain teaches Dharma good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end.
Sure. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, this is a very famous line. The good in the beginning, because the beginning is training in moral virtue. In other words, the first training we do is to keep our body and speech pure, refine our body and speech. The first 3 precepts plus the 4th precept. First 3 precepts for the body, 4th precepts for speech. That is purifying our body. That's called moral training. All right, first part. This is the bottom of the pyramid. And the next level is the second training, mental training, samadhi, sikha. Samadhi meaning concentration. Here samadhi means meditation, concentration, or meditation leading to concentration. Okay. So having kept the precept, then we are at peace. It's easier to meditate. In other words, we calm our body first, the senses, then the senses won't distract us, then we go into meditation. So that is the second one. That's the middle. And the middle also is beautiful, because when you meditate, it's also beautiful. When you keep the precepts well, it is beautiful. Keeping the precepts well is called the beginning. Practicing meditation after that is called the middle. And the result of both, wisdom arises. You begin to understand things better, more clearly. So that is the wisdom training. That's the third one. That is the last part, which is also beautiful because it makes us happy. It brings joy to others also. Right? So you have this, the threefold beauty, threefold happiness. The teaching is beautiful in the beginning, moral virtue, keeping the precepts. It is beautiful in the middle, mental training, keeping our mind calm and clear. And then the wisdom that arises, watching impermanence, seeing true reality. That's the last one, which is also beautiful because it overcomes suffering. Okay. All right. So
Thank you, Brother Piya.
next question.
The next question from Brother LCO.
All right.
He mentioned, having learned Buddhism and gaining wisdom, is it wrong to create self-dharma like one saying about? During a meditation class outdoor, a student asked a teacher that the cloud is moving, and the teacher rebutted that it's not the cloud that is moving. It's important, but it's your heart that is moving.
Yeah, some teachers like to talk like that, but if the context is helpful, then it will drive home a point. Now, sometimes when the teacher talks like that, they say, wow, now I understand it better. Then it is helpful. But sometimes teachers talk this way to dismiss the student, to make fun of the student, even indirectly look down on the student. There are many cases like this too. This, of course, other teachers will know. And when it's recorded forever, so to speak. People will know that you're a nasty, sarcastic teacher, and it won't be very good, unfortunately, right? So good and bad. So we have to see the context. If it highlights something, it helps us to remember in a very dramatic, beautiful way, yeah, okay, we can take it. So it depends on what the teacher means, depends on his heart when he teaches. Many teachers after a while get very annoyed. They're not happy because people keep asking the same question, or they're not happy because lay people have problems, come and go to them, ask them, and then one monk told me, oh, these lay people always come with the same problem. He's not very happy. But we are training, you know, when it comes to counseling, if you're not happy, don't counsel people. I mean, when you counsel people, these people are important, they're sacred, you know, because their problems are real. And when I was a young monk, I used to complain to my teacher, I say, you know, why all these people ask same question, same problem? And the teacher smiled and said, you know, you're lucky they ask you the same problem, same question, because you know the answers. If they come with a new problem every time, you're going to have a problem. I was lucky to have such a kind and clever teacher, and very compassionate to telling me the right thing. Well, this is not a difficult job. I mean, it's not an easy job, I'm sorry. We have our occupational hazards, you know, every job got the occupational hazards. So this is our occupational hazard if you make it so. So you got to tell yourself, that's the way people are. They have the reasons for asking those questions, or maybe you miss something, you know, so don't get upset, okay? But it's all right to get upset occasionally, but then find out why you're upset. There must be a reason for that. Find out why. Maybe overwork. Okay, next time don't work so hard, you know, and so on. Okay. So we get to know people in classes like this, and you get to know the teacher. It's not an easy line to teach. Of course, we can make it easy by telling jokes. Then people are always laughing, so they won't talk serious stuff. That's one easy way out. Teachers would like to joke. Okay. Then you find they never get into trouble. That's one easy way out, okay? But then nobody learns much. They say, oh, this teacher very good, makes me laugh. And some people like it, that's fine, I suppose. Okay, any other question?
Thank you, Brother Piya. No more question in the chat box at the moment.
All right, we only have 5 minutes, better time. Is someone asking a question? Oh, that's just a spillover, no? So you find the Kalama Sutta is quite different from what we heard before. So I'm happy to hear that in the sense, at least we cleared something in the Buddha's name. This is what the Buddha taught. He didn't, downsize his teaching. He didn't over popularize his teaching. You can do what you like, things like that. Yeah. So there are certain things we got to know about the suttas. More is to come because the last part is in fact very important. We have not come to that yet, so don't jump to any conclusions about the sutta yet. No? The very last part before the Kalamas take refuge. Okay. I've spoken to SKE, Brother Yu Chong and Kim Si, the president. If we need, we can have an extra session. But the way I look at it, right now, I don't think we need that extra session. But again, depends on the next lesson. We see how. No? As far as I can see, probably we may not need the extra lesson. If there is, in the next lesson, I will consult you. I will tell you, and we'll see how. No? Any questions in time?
Can I read the passage from Sister Pamuja?
Sure.
The good teacher teaches, the better teacher shows, the best teacher inspires. Please.
Okay. Interesting.
And then there's another question from Brother LCO.
Okay.
So did the Kalamas all become Buddhists?
This is the interesting thing, They definitely learn some things and they all take refuge. You can read the ending of the sutta. They all took refuge. And this is where the Chinese version is very interesting. The Chinese version had an extra line which is not found in the Pali. The Chinese version, all these Kalamas say, "Oh, we have realized it. We have realized it." In other words, from the way the coding of the words, if you look at the sutta style, it suggests they attain at least stream winning. All right. So these are some possibilities that looking from the text, the literature, this is what I can tell you. Okay. So definitely to hear the Buddha teaching all these things, at least some of the Kalamas would have benefited, right? So they're very happy in the end anyway because of the teaching the Buddha gave them. The Buddha did not talk down to them. The Buddha did not say, "Oh, you're not very clever anyway, so don't think too much." The Buddha actually goes step by step, coach them how to think correctly, what's right, what's wrong, and how to choose the right path. Okay. All right, 5 more minutes. Any questions? Last minute questions? Sound like a salesman, huh?
Thank you, Brother Piya. That's all in the chat box.
It's okay. We just wait a while.
Okay.
5 minutes is very fast, nah? So this, remember, look up the sutta. If you don't have all the 4 sections, contact us through the Telegram. The Telegram is very easy to use. Next Friday, we will post the 4th section, the Chinese and the English translation. Okay, that is a very interesting part by itself, right? And then we will study that one after that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excuse me, sister. I got a question here from Brother Dr. Lee. He says he's reading Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation. He can't find the section on the 4 divine abodes.
Sometimes they give what's called an abridged version. They just take the 10 points only. All right. So you got to look at the numbering. You go to his Anguttara translation. It's all there. Okay. Don't look at the short book and look at the big book, the discourses, numerical discourses of the Buddha. It's all there. Okay. go to A 3.65. No? Remember, don't quote the body as authority also. Don't quote me as authority also. Look at the sutta itself, examine, okay, see for yourself. No? And again, ask yourself, why is this so important to you? Why is it that you want the shorter Kalama Sutta with all that, believe what you like, you don't have to accept anything. That's the modernist view, because people can do what they like. So in the end, there's no Buddhism. It's your own ideas, your own Buddhism. Then we're going to have a lot of difficulties there. There's no point of me talking anyway, because everyone can have their own views. No?
Brother Piya, there's a last question from Brother Ryan Go.
Yeah.
The Chinese translated texts are all the Mahayana teaching?
No. Here's what is interesting is if you look at the Ta Chang Jing, the volume 1, volume 2, T1, T2, they preserve what are called the Ahanjing, or in Pali Sanskrit is Agamas, the Agamas. These are the Chinese translation of the early Buddhist texts, pre-Mahayana, okay? But they are not exactly copies like the Pali Sutta, because we're talking about these ancient texts in different Indic dialects. Not Pali, some of them in Sanskrit even. They came to China about, say, 500 to 700 years after Buddha's time. Imagine all the way to China, and then they get translated. A lot of difficulties, Now, if you want to read some of these difficulties, I've compiled 4 or 5 volumes called How Buddhism Became Chinese. In one of the volumes, I describe the difficulties they face. So if you want that, just message me on Telegram. We'll send you that volume on the difficulties of the translations that the ancient Chinese face. No? Not just the ancient Chinese, the monks who came from India, Central Asia, who brought the text, they also faced difficulties in the translation. And the Chinese translation went through different phases, different styles. For example, you have Kumarajiva style, very nice and elegant, but some parts not accurate. And then you have Sun Chang's translation, very accurate, but very technical, and so on. So you have that kind of difficulty. And then the early translation, they use many Taoist words. So in the end, people do not confuse. They say, is this Taoism or is this Buddhism? So they have issues like that. So slowly the Chinese introduce their own words, and that helped the Chinese language to grow with hundreds of thousands of new words. That's what a contribution, what Buddhism gave to Chinese culture. Yeah. So let me know if you want that book, How Buddhism Became Chinese, on the difficulties of translations. Okay.
Thank you, Brother Piya. Can you take one more last question?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, from Brother LC here.
Right.
There have been so many Dhamma flying around. And I heard one that we must not hold to the Dhamma and must let go the Dhamma to move on. Is this totally wrong?
The way it's put is very scary. That's the thing about some, I don't know what to say here. It's the person who published that post, you see. Remember, context is very important. The Buddha's in the, let me see, I think it's the parable of the water snake, right? Where you have the raft and the water snake. The Buddha says that you should not cling on to the Dharma. You should, in other words, you should understand what the Dharma is, reflect on it, and once you understand it, you let go of it. That's the context, all right? You don't let go of the Dharma before you understand it, then you got no Dharma, see? Once I understand something, I don't have to hold on to it anymore, right? I don't have to worry about it because I understand it, I know where it is, and I can explain it. That's the meaning, right? So it doesn't mean forget about the Dhamma. No need to read suttas. This is what they're trying to tell you. Oh, therefore, don't read suttas. No need to read suttas. No need to know Dhamma. That lazy attitude. Very dangerous. That one, I don't agree. And that is actually Mara's voice. Be very careful. Okay. So please quote the suttas correctly. Know which sutta it is. What's the Buddha talking about? Right. No easy way out. Just, you know, for offhand statement like that. Okay. So I would advise you to disregard such statements. It only wastes your time and distract you from learning the real thing. Okay. So go back to the sutta, go back to the Buddha. Yeah? All right, so I think it's just nice for our timing.
Excuse me, Piya, just to
Yeah.
add on what you just said.
Sure.
It's in the Kalama Sutta, and we studied it in our SKE Global Sutta. So it's recorded the video.
Correct. Alagadupama Sutta, parable of the water snake. Okay, so it's there. Rana has better memory than me, and he will tell you, she can tell you all this. We have done, you know, she spends hours editing those videos, and you have them all there. Please look up all those, listen to them. All right. Okay. So we can photograph taken, huh?
No,
No.
not
All
yet.
right. Let's take our weekend photo now. So we are very new. So
Please turn on your videos, please.
yeah, turn on your videos. I'm so happy to have you all. 2 more sessions. 1 more session actually. Huh? 1 more session. Yeah. So let us close this wonderful study. Whenever we study suttas like this, it's a challenge. Okay, our views will be challenged. Okay. Sometimes we are proven right, sometimes more often proven wrong. If we are proven wrong, that means you are learning something. It's not that it is disadvantage, not a disadvantage at all. It is taking a new step, right? So when we take a new step, we let go of the previous step. So that's what learning is about. And the fact that we have gathered here means that we have made a small sacrifice to spend our time listening to the Dhamma. We have recited the 3 refuges, the 5 precepts. We have done some meditation. These are simple practices we have done to build up our wisdom. By all these good deeds we have done, may you be well and happy. May I be well and happy. May our loved ones, our friends, relatives, even enemies too, be well and happy. So send your kind thoughts to those who are important to you. This is a good time to do so. Above all, may each of you grow in greater peace and mental clarity to know the true teachings of the Buddha. With that, we show our gratitude to the 3 jewels, as always, by remembering where our teachings come from and where it goes back to. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Bow down. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Bow down. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Bow down. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, so have a wonderful evening and a good weekend, everyone.